Guys, I have some very, very, very bad news. AI is coming for our jobs as poets. Matthias, are you scared?
I'm basically AI already, so I'm just joining my people.
Facts. This is The Versus Live.
My name is Matthias.
My name's Jeff. Welcome to Versus Live.
Why write poetry?
The poem is done. Like, what was the point here? I also don't know where this poem is going.
Poetry's very love-hate.
The worst possible thing is them just saying no.
Okay, so welcome to everybody. We are here again with The Versus Live every Tuesday, where we talk all things related to poetry. And one of the things that's happening right now, Matthias, I don't know if you're aware of, there's a program called, ChatGPT?
ChatGPT.
And it's an open source platform, and you don't need to know what any of that means. But basically, it's like a chatbot that you can like talk to, and it can do all kinds of crazy things. And that's kind of what we're going to be discussing today, because I basically had a conversation with ChatGPT. It was very cordial, friendly.
What if like it thought it was also talking to an AI because it was talking to you? So it was just like,
I mean, in all honesty, real quick too. Like, I think its pronoun actually probably be they, because it refers to itself as a. It's not like one thing. It's like
it's a collective consciousness.
Exactly.
We've learned nothing from the Terminator movies.
It repeatedly reminds you of that. Like, hey guys, I'm a.
Just want to let you know, I'm all around you.
We're all multitudes. Yeah, we're all multitudes. Come on. So basically, I had it write 3 poems, and they got increasingly difficult with each prompt, just to kind of see how it would handle everything. And you guys can let us know in the chat or in the replay if you're watching, in the comments, just kind of how you feel about each of these.
Wait, what's the turnaround on poem
seconds
creation? Seconds, man.
So for instance, just to give some more context to this too, I asked it to write a 5-paragraph essay.
Okay.
You know, props to high school. Come on, 5-paragraph essay.
MLA format.
Yeah. I should have asked it to source. That would have actually been a good challenge. 5-paragraph format of an essay saying why people should text and drive. And I was actually kind of impressed. Like, this was like, it had very interesting reasons. It could have gone deeper into them. You know, like it had good main ideas. The details could have been a little bit more developed. So come on.
It was so compelling that he actually started reading the article while he was driving.
I was convinced.
Paragraph 1.
I decided to text myself the essay from memory. Yeah, as I was doing it. And you know, I could definitely understand why people would be afraid of what this could do. Like, you know, high school students kind of just randomly writing essays, college students putting in things, you know, for like paragraphs and things.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a check for something like that. If there's like maybe an archive, like, you know, your instructors can like resource and be like, okay, well, like I know AI generated
this.
But
that's the issue, because it's original work. Like, it's not, you know, it's not just pulling sentences.
Yeah,
like it's entirely novel. Everything it writes.
It's our future overlords
pretty much
writing our English papers for us.
They're trying to create like a watermark system, so that way every time it creates something, you can trace it back to the origin. Excuse me. So that way people could kind of track and make sure, again, people aren't just submitting college level work. But I think the real issue is that, you know, I think what eventually we're going to see happen in college settings is work's going to have to be done day of. You know, you can't necessarily assign essays to be, you know, it's due in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and not like assignments that might have to be done in class, you know.
Yeah, like you have to actually see them churning the work out,
or at least for major assignments. I don't know what the other alternative is right now. This is really powerful. Like, if you're a high school teacher or someone watching this, like, you need to kind of be aware of this, because it can probably write better than some of your students can.
I don't know why my brain, like, even as you're explaining like its application in the poetry world, I'm like, no, if you're the military and you're listening to this, the thing you should be asking yourself is, should we stop this now before John Connor is required?
I mean, I'm pretty sure the poetry thing is the most concerning. No, but this brings into all kinds of like ethical questions about AI. Like, you can let us know. I'm very curious, if people watching this, if you guys use Lensa, you know, the app that obviously not writing, but more artistic space. You know, I think what we're seeing is
artistic.
No, but like art, like visual arts. Excuse me.
Not poetry. I'm talking about
besides typeset.
actual art, like people that work for it.
No, but like I think what we're increasingly seeing with AI is that the things that we had all assumed, industries that we knew were going to be disrupted, are kind of getting that way, but industries that we thought were protected,
Creative field, yeah.
especially with regards to like the creative industries and fields, those are actually very much at risk.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that I was thinking about, like how long is it until the AI? And really, it's just a matter of time, because it's really just a matter of how much information you feed it. You know what I mean? Before it can
100%.
create some really truly quality, work. And it's already kind of doing that in the two-dimensional art space. And I'm sure there's probably programs that can, do like I'm sure like 3D. So it's like, when it comes to the written word, which I think every artist kind of views their field as like, okay, this is something so intrinsically human that you need a human to create. But we're kind of seeing that it's not only is it absolutely possible, but it's inevitable. It's like we're hurtling towards it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's also for instance, I was reading an article again. We will get to the poems, I promise, but this was again talking more about the Lensa app, which is, again, if you're not familiar with it, if you go on Facebook or Instagram and just look at people's profile pictures, if you see anyone with like a very stylized picture, with like almost like comic style or things like that, especially within the last like couple weeks, that's kind of when it's been popping off. Most likely they got it from Lensa. It's not free, by the way. People are paying for these.
Yeah, it's like $3.99.
Yeah,
so
it's like $3-4
people
bucks.
are, and I don't know if this helps anybody. So Lensa AI is a photo and video editor. So it does photo and video. I didn't even know
I've
that.
not seen the video, so I can't speak to the video.
So photo and video editor that recently launched a magic app. So okay, so it's been around before, but the magic avatar feature is the new one. It's powered by AI. This generates stylized portraits of users who submit images of themselves. The portraits can be styled in various ways, such as sci-fi or fantasy rendering. And this is, it's not kind of digging any deeper into kind of where it's from or anything like that. So I would advise looking into it, as far as what you to be honest, at this point, it's kind of anything that you're using your phone for is probably taking your entire life savings at the same time. Who knows? But yeah, I think that's like something that's kind of worrisome a little bit, but it's also just thinking about the implications of like something that is machine based being able to create authentic individual works of art. So yeah,
which have never been created before. Like, these are all original.
Yeah.
We're even getting into the era, you guys, if you look up, I think it was Colorado or whatever, like there was an art competition. Who won the art competition? It was a guy who kind of was using like Dolly or something like that, or his own program, and basically he just typed in a sentence. The sentence became a picture. He used the picture. He won the contest. So now this is like the battlegrounds here. It's happening.
Yeah. We're
so
getting there.
let's take a look though at what is happening with the poems. So again, there were 3 poems. I had it right. I'm going to share right now the first poem. Just give me a moment. Find the right one. Okay. So, like I said, I had it write a poem. It took probably 5 seconds for it to write this poem. One of the things that you will see is that this poem, first draft, is rhyming.
Yeah.
First draft, not only is it rhyming, it's meter. The sky is blue, the grass is green, the world is vast and full of scenes. So, we got some I ams going on.
Yeah.
So, again, high school poetry class, freshman poets, what you doing? What you doing? And so this is the very first poem. I had it right. I said, hey, write me I think I said 10 think I said a 10-line poem. This obviously is not 10 lines. He just felt so compelled by the spirit. He's like, nope.
Got 2 more.
Going all the way. So yeah, just kind of reading this. What are some of the first things that kind of jump out at you?
Do you want to give it a read?
Sure, we can do that. Oh, I should have gotten like an AI voice to read this, but that's fine. Let's see. The sky is blue, the grass is green, the world is vast and full of scenes from mountains high to oceans deep. There's beauty here for us to keep. But let us not forget to care for all the creatures, great and small, for they, like us, deserve a share of this world and its wonders all. So let us love and let us give to all the beings that we live with, and let us make this world a place where all can thrive and have their space. First things that kind of jump out at you reading this.
Why in the third to last line, to all the beings that we live with? Like, why didn't you say with which we live? And the line on the rhyme.
I actually really liked that.
Like it's weird that it's like the thing that I'm thinking is like what I would imagine a robot would do in that space. Like a robot would be like, this has to rhyme. Like the last line has to rhyme in order to harmonize, but like it's perhaps a more creative, which is maybe terrifying. That it's like, no, this is like creative, like little like which we live with. It's like kind of it throws the meter off.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I really like about it.
Scheme off, but it's like it should know how to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, look, I mean, it could have just ended at live, or it could have moved with to the next line. Like these are, I think it's aware of these choices, and the fact that it paired that, so you ending with the double sounds. It is unexpected, and every a good poem should have something
throw you off a little
about
bit.
it. Yeah, and it does like kind of twist up the meter, and I'm all about in a poem you don't want like a super perfect meter. So I was really I like that choice. I'm glad you brought that up, because if you didn't, I definitely was going to jump all over that. Other things that kind of stand out to you?
I mean, that's pretty much the biggest. I think everything else feels like, almost like a Hallmark card esque, kind of feeling, when we're talking about the size of the lines and, broke it up into fours. It just feels real. This is what, No digs at Hallmark. I'm sorry, anybody from Hallmark that has heard.
I think I actually met someone that works at Hallmark actually. Right? Cards. Yeah.
Well, sorry, Hallmark.
It was ChatGPT. No, I was
kidding. We're coming for you. But yeah, no, it just seems like a very kind of really basic, but you get the point, and I mean it's nice.
Yeah, I think like basic, but at the same time familiarity with poetic devices again, like we said. Like there's meter here. That line again with the width I thought was very interesting. The theme is expected. That first line isn't going to necessarily win any awards, in a lot of ways this is if I were putting on my editing hat, I'd be kind of like the poem doesn't really start till the second stanza.
Jeff is about to start editing the robot that wrote this poem, guys. He's elevated to the next level of cutting people's work. He said even this robot has too many words.
But actually, but also going on that too is that we do have turns. The second stanza has a bit of a turn. The first stanza is very pleasant, and then we kind of get a little bit of a shift. But let us not forget this, all this is our reality, but let us not forget that there's also these things happening as well, which I thought was good. I wasn't necessarily expecting turns of any sort. I had no idea what to expect. Also the fact, it's a poem that kind of goes back to kind of the romantic tradition, your typical like 1800s poems, lots of nature, scenes like that. Also kind of the universal us, like let us, all of us, kind of general themes there.
The hive mind,
lacking in a specificity, it's saying a kind of a very general level, which again, I think if you again look at like high school poets and things like that, pretty common
Yeah, I
Like,
think it's kind of a matter of resolution. You know what I mean? It's like, you're kind of starting. It's all. Yeah, I mean, it is exactly like that. Almost, it's like, you when typically when poets are starting out, especially if you're starting out in grade school, maybe even like middle school, you don't have a ton of maybe the experience that you
mhm,
would have, or you
mhm,
don't have a ton of you don't have all of the language to really kind of describe things, and so you're
mhm,
kind of dealing with a very kind of low resolution of most of the concepts, and naturally as you get older, you get wiser, you experience more, your resolution gets better
mhm,
into where you're able to distill a clearer picture with your language
mhm,
and with your work. So that seems to be kind of what this
mhm,
would feel like to me. But also I would wonder, like, you know, I think the only thing that we kind of have as a barometer against that, as far as how that happens, is like the human experience. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And so it's like a fifth grader. I mean, a fifth grader. You'd be like a fifth grader. Hopefully, you haven't had a life that's like, oh my gosh, like your trauma's competing right up there with these guys. So hopefully, it's not the case. But it's like I almost kind of wonder what it's going to look like for AI to improve on that scope,
Mhm, mhm.
or like, again, being fearful of like what happens if AI feels that kind of pain and frustration
Yeah.
with humans.
That's an interesting idea of like how would an AI write about trauma? Because it would probably have to be projecting about traumas it's never personally experienced.
How do we
And
know?
how would it go about that? I mean, yeah. I mean, how would we know?
I'm not
That's
gonna
a great question.
listen, MacBook. I'm not about to erase your. I'm not gonna erase your trauma. Whatever you went through, I stand in solidarity.
One last comment about this poem that kind of stood out to me. The last stanza, kind of finishing with a bow, kind
Yeah.
of ending it like happy ending, kind of like, hey, everything's gonna be. Let's do this, guys. Let's all love and let's give. Um, Although I guess you could also make an argument that if you're implying like let's love and let us give to all the beings that we live with, and let's make this world a place where we can thrive and have their space. The implications of that are that that's not the reality. You
Yeah.
know, so
Oh,
just there could be a little bit of kind of some darkness lurking.
y- listen, man. Okay, I'm telling you, there's nothing less assuring than a poem being like, hey man, all this nature and stuff is happening and we should be cooperating, and like the ones that aren't cooperating
Yeah,
is us.
let's not
Like
forget.
we're
By the way, guys.
we're the ones that aren't cooperating with
Yep.
this. So
So that's the first. That's the first draft. Okay, or the first poem that it gave me. Let's take a look at the second one. And in fact,
when they invented, I can't remember in Terminator, when, because I know like that's how it was in iRobot. They were like helpers, but in like Skynet, what was like the direct application that they were trying to make?
for Skynet, I mean, it was military
Artificial.
purpose, right? I think it was just military.
Mm, Yeah, I gotta rewatch. There was that
It's been a minute. Oh, like the Origins one or whatever. That
Genesis.
came, yeah,
No, yeah, well,
it was
yeah,
like
Terminator.
it was like the prequel kind of thing.
Man, I think I've watched it before, but
I haven't seen it in a very long
I didn't
time.
feel right about watching.
This is the second poem I asked it to write. So I asked it to write the same poem, but make it free verse. Interesting enough, well, let's see some of the decisions it made.
You want me to read this one?
Sure.
The sky is blue, the grass is green, world vast, full of scenes, mountains high, oceans deep, beauty here for us to keep. But let's not forget to care for creatures great and small. They deserve a share of world and its wonders all. So let us love and let wow. So let us love and give to beings that we live with. Make this world a place where all can thrive and have their space.
This might be easier. I'm gonna pull up the original as well because there was so many parallels. Give me a moment. Because when I asked it to do free verse, this was not the free verse poem I was expecting to get, which is fine.
Do you, so one of the things that makes me kind of think is, I mean, and maybe this is how like learning happens, even with like organic, like with like humans and
Just
stuff
like
like
watch out
that.
for the infinite window. Okay. So these are the 2 poems. But go on.
Okay. But yeah, I was just thinking like maybe it's how like, but I'm almost wonder like if you put that kind of prompt into it, is it like it only has a command structure where in which it essentially generates something that's incredibly similar because its command structure, the commands
Hmm.
that you gave it was essentially the same except for one thing which made it free verse was just essentially it's telling it
That's a good
same thing
question.
but break it down different
So one
maybe.
thing that my wife and I did was Kathy asked it to tell her a story. And it was like the story, like a dragon, prince, princess, kind of typical story. And so we played around with that story. Like I said, make the story darker because you know me. And so it made this story slightly darker. Um, and then Kathy asked it to tell a story about a pina colada. And the first like paragraph of the story was the same, but then as soon as the pina colada came in, the whole thing was very, very different. Like the princess became obsessed with ordering pina coladas at a bar, and she was like kept going back to like it was a very different story.
Jesus.
So I think like
It's
if
tying
you
alcohol to
like
the
I
World
think if you
Propaganda.
gave it enough input, you could end up with a pretty different poem. I don't think you would always end up with exactly kind of the same like
Well,
structure over and over again.
well, yeah. So it's just like the more definition that you give its prompting, the more information that it has to work on
Hmm.
to create something that is different
Hmm.
than something which maybe that's just how learning happens. Because I mean, I guess when
Hmm.
you think about it, that is how learning happens. Like
Hmm.
you get
Hmm.
more information, and the more information
Yeah.
that you have, the better position you are to
Yeah.
generate a different decision. So
Yeah.
I guess. I
Yeah.
guess maybe I'm not saying maybe that's just how like the world is maybe.
But to kind of go on that point, this wasn't the free verse poem I was expecting to get. Firstly, because it rhymed, and I'm not used to free verse poems in general rhyming. Um, the meter is much more disrupted, so I definitely give it that. Um, and Chat GPT,
Yeah.
to its credit, was very quick to note in free verse poetry there are no specific rules for rhyme or meter, so I can rhyme when I want. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Um, So I thought, some of his choices were interesting. Took off some verbs, took off some conjunctions like and. You can see that in the first 2 lines.
Yeah.
Took off some prepositions. It took off basically a lot of the kind of like the function words, but not necessarily the content words. Um, and you're still able to maintain. One of the things I also forgot to mention from the first poem that I thought was interesting too is just to switch up in the rhyme scheme,
Yeah.
which again was a well done. And that also carried over, not surprisingly, to the second poem too. Um, yeah. Any other kind of thoughts, things that you're noticing, just going from that first poem to the second poem?
Not necessarily. I mean, I just
It kept that live
it
with, which was
it
interesting.
yeah. I mean, I think it just makes me wonder. Man, I'm not like a tech wizard, so I don't really know exactly how all the AI stuff works. But yeah, I think it makes me kind of harken back to how just like we think, because I'm trying to like
Mm,
recall like before I had enough words to be conversational, which
mm,
might be hard to kind of wrap my head around. But I even think about like children that like either children in my family or children that I know that like you watch their development from
mm-hmm.
being like babies to being people that you can have interactions
Yeah.
with, and kind of just wondering, okay, like and with them, with humans, it's like you get a lot more mistakes, and things aren't an algorithm or other, you know what I mean? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you can get something different just based off somebody's mood.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I almost wonder like that mood, that emotion based, I like, is there any of that happening with
Mm,
artificial intelligence where in which it's like, okay, well maybe in a different time of year, given different
mm.
circumstances, man, I wonder if this is going to generate something different.
Got you. Yeah, because people we like to think that we're just ourselves, but the reality is we are all multiple selves. We're changing constantly.
You'll never beat us, robots.
One of the things that if you talk to Chat GPT at some point, there's probably going to tell you that, hey, like, I don't have emotions. I'm just
what's the site called?
It's called ChatGPT. If you type that in, you will have to. There's all kinds of things, but you have to make an account. So to get your data,
I'm not gonna do all that. Okay, never mind.
but I think it's definitely like kind of worth playing around with, and kind of seeing. I'm just kind of getting an idea of the direction technology is going in. Did you prefer the first poem or the second poem?
I think I preferred the first one.
I like the first one more too. The second one, you lose a lot of the sentences feel, I don't want to say like amateurish, but the transitions are way less smooth. Like I'm looking at like the last stanza in particular, like, so let's love and give to beings that we live with, make this world like that. That make is a lot less. That transition is just so much more cutting than it was in the first one. The and let us just kind of just joins things together so much more pleasantly, in my opinion. The make this world, that to me feels like something I see a lot with like people getting started with poetry or writing their first poems. And then that very unbalanced last line, which you could actually argue, you can make arguments for it because it's so different from everything else that came before it. It's your longest line. It's got the most words. So you can certainly make an argument about it, but in general, for me right now, it feels a little too jarring. Other things about these first two drafts?
No, we have a third draft?
There's a third draft. So let me stop sharing. So those are the first two drafts that we did. I was not satisfied though. I wanted more. So
you're giving artificial intelligence a complex. Jeff's not satisfied. Make more poems for Jeff.
So I wanted to see what it could do. So I said, hey, take the second poem, the free verse poem, and add stakes. And I didn't even know if it would understand what that even meant.
Holy crap.
But this is what we got. So I told it to add stakes. So it tried to add some stakes. And you guys can let me know if you think it did it or not. I'll read this one. The sky is blue, the grass is green, but time is short and life is fleeting. We must act now before it's too late to protect this world and its fate. The mountains rise, the oceans crash, but we are the ones who hold the keys to a future bright or one that's grim. It all depends on what we do and what we believe. So let us love and let us give to all the beings that we live with, and let us make this world a place where all can thrive and none shall face the darkness of a world without grace. We got stakes.
That's gonna be playing in 2050. That's gonna be playing on like the jumbotron in the center of the city, like while like the humans are like being like carted around by these like robot androids that are just like pushing us. Are like, we must act now before it's too late. To protect this world and its fate. Like that's legit.
Like it's like in terms of like scale, it's still like very grandiose, and I generally prefer the individual, but I asked for stakes. It gave me stakes, and it didn't just like wait to give me stakes. Like the second line immediately, the sky is blue, the grass is green, but time is short. I was like, oh my god,
time is short, Jeff, and life is fleeting. Not our life. We'll live forever.
and then going like, we must act now before it's too late. Like it's fate. Like it's like, oh my, we definitely have escalated from our very first draft to this. Like things have
none
taken
shall
on.
Face the darkness of a world without grace.
There's some of those things. We got some lines here that we just haven't gotten in the previous drafts, including the fact. I mean, we just literally got an extra line. So I thought that choice was really interesting to be like, no, we're no longer sticking to the length that we had before. We're going 13, which is also a super interesting number to pick. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I can't rule
It's
it
hard
out.
to say, guys.
I was pretty impressed. I didn't know what to expect saying, hey, add stakes to this poem. And this is what I got. I was like, yeah, you did it.
Like if you were in a workshop, if you were leading a poetry workshop and one of the people in the workshop churned out this poem, take away the incredible fear of the fact that this all came from artificial intelligence, and it's like a regular would those be the same critiques, or are there?
Yeah, I mean, I would still, I think I would still be like, hey, let's I still don't know why the speaker is so invested in the situation, so that's kind of a question, and that's
well, this speaker's not.
It's
like, whether humans live or die.
But maybe I don't know, but maybe they are. Like, I don't.
Whether humans live or die, do you think that the artificial intelligence is like it's already alive, it's already awake?
It's just some of the also just devices that I see. Like, now we're getting some interesting enjambment. Especially like second stanza, the oceans crash, but we're the ones who hold the keys to a future bright. Like we haven't seen lines like that in any of the previous versions. And that actually doesn't seem to happen again. I would have liked to see some more enjambment across the stanzas too. Because right now every stanza is kind of its own little independent block.
I get that actually. You'd want to see like maybe oh man, it's actually kind of weird because I guess because it does add an additional line. But if you saw like the line breaks it in maybe into 2 instead of 3.
Yeah, I mean we could have. There's so many options, right? We could always play with it and things, but to be fair, it wrote every single one of these drafts in about 5 seconds. So I can't critique it. It's too much for a poem that was written in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, now listen, for a poem that took you 45 minutes to write, this is for a poem that took you 5 seconds to write. This is amazing.
All right.
This is amazing.
So then the real question. So I mean, we talked earlier about like art. I mean, let's just kind of discuss the implications of all this. We've already seen art contests, like people submitting work written by or painted, quote unquote, by computers. Poetry. I mean, obviously, poetry's not going to be far behind. People are going to be able to say like, "Hey, write me a poem that does these things," and then you submit it to Poetry Mag.
Do you think there's going to be like an artificial intelligence poetry mag that's just like
that just
different programs?
Because that's the thing. Like you have to write the prompt. I mean, that's what, for instance, the artists that have won the art contests, have argued that I made the algorithm, or I had to make the sentence that led to the piece.
That's fair.
So I think. I mean, again, it's just another gray area. Are we going to see that like submissions that come from AI sources that are known, like, are they going to be categorized the same way, or is there going to be a separate division? So, maybe they'll have like, they have, flash fiction, your nonfiction section, your essay section, your poetry section. Maybe they'll have an AI generated section, or is it all going to be merged? Or are people just going to say they wrote the poem, but it was actually the program that did 99% of the work? Like, I don't.
Or are we going to wise up and pull the plug now? We may never know.
Well, I mean, this could have really big implications, in terms of like people creating manuscripts, in terms of people applying for MFA programs or scholarships and things.
It's like I think when it comes to like very practical things, when it comes to like applications, when it comes to like even like documents. I mean, I can understand it. You know what I mean? Like I can understand, especially like for some of like the free write sections of that. But man, I think once we're getting down to the point where there's like creative work involved, it's like it's kind of like you don't know what the other
Yeah.
you don't know what the other end of that looks like, and especially for the
Mm-hmm.
fields that
Mm-hmm.
are dependent on creative work, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not even necessarily dependent on creative work in the way that like maybe a poet would be like dependent on creative work to, because I think a lot of it comes from the fact that it's not a computer, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
for creatives. I
Hmm.
don't know if that's, oh, it's frozen.
I think we're still good. No, that camera
It's
is
frozen.
Hopefully the audio is still good. Let me try to turn it off and on.
Okay.
Technical difficulties. Hopefully it's still going.
The robots hurt us, man. The one time that it messes up. It went black. What's up? It went black. Here we go. We're back. Hello, people. But yeah, so it's, I think, like kind of those fields where you might need like creative input, like you might need like especially I think about like advertising, like that's gonna be like kind of a huge cutting into that field, because it's like, you know, maybe for like if you're buying a poetry book, it's worth it to you to be like, okay, I want to buy it from this person in specific because I like their mind. But like if you, and I mean I almost wonder how long it's going to be until they're able to do that kind of, I don't know, in Captain America Civil War, when Tony was like, hey, analyze his movements, and then the suit could just do all the movements that Captain America did, like that. So it's like I wonder if it's like before, or how long we have until it's a situation like that where it's like write a poem how this person might write a poem. But kind of outside of that, I know a lot of poets, they get, or a lot of just artists in general, especially ones that are, I guess for anybody when it comes to like the advertising, because like both are like when it comes to 2D art, but as well as like writing advertisements and stuff like that. It's like if I'm a business owner looking at my bottom line and I'm looking at, okay, well, I got to create something to, I don't know, to pitch some new idea or to pitch some new product. Am I gonna pay a human $500, or am I gonna get a subscription to a program for however much a month and just be like, okay, I can consistently churn out creative work for my advertisement? So
No, advertising is I would definitely imagine that's a field that's in danger. Voice acting, you know, people talking for,
yeah, man.
you know, it's you can still tell in general when it's an AI talking, but it's compare like things they have out this year compared to like 2 or 3 years ago. It's
I mean, we have, and it's leaping in a non-linear kind of like velocity. So it's like like maybe like next year you're not going to be able to tell the difference at all. You know what I'm saying? Like it could be next year. I know like they were talking about like some of the advancements when it comes to like doctoring video and stuff like that. So it's like, and I wonder how long it's going to be, or if maybe if it's already exists where like an AI can just generate a video of somebody doing, like, you know,
yeah, I mean,
like
deep
doing
fakes. I mean,
anything,
that's a real thing.
yeah.
You know, the hot Tom Cruise deep fakes are probably the most known.
Yeah, but like, because the thing is, like, those require human
Yeah,
stand-in.
you still have to
You
kind
know
of
what I
do
mean?
it.
Like,
Yeah.
I almost wonder, like, how long it's going to be until it's like, okay, like, we can just generate like a very incredibly lifelike, like human visual that looks, you know, I mean, I'm sure by the time it gets there, like it'll have hit like, you know, the gaming industry and stuff like that already, to where it's like, you know, your NBA 2Ks and stuff like that will kind of have stuff like that. But like, man, I wonder how long it'll be until it's like that's what you're watching instead of the NBA. You know what I mean? Like, or the NFL, like you're watching like artificially intelligent, like generated kind of graphics just go through a season. You know what I mean? And the implications are kind of out of this world.
So to steer back to poetry, do you think that poetry journals should accept work created by programs like this?
No, I definitely don't. Do I think they will?
Intentionally or not, I think it's.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah.
What if
No,
it
I
was
think,
like
think they
marked
will.
like kind of like Baseball Hall of Fame, put like an asterisk next to it, like this is a computer.
Yeah,
I'm still not a fan. Okay.
I also, I mean, if what we saw just now is an indicator, it's like for some of the better writers of our time right now, it's like it's not going to compete. But it's like it's artificial intelligence, so its learning curve is a lot faster too. So it's like, what if 3 months from now, like it's there?
I mean, I imagine just based on what I'm seeing today, it could win in like an 8th grade poetry contest.
No, yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's so 8th grade. I mean, yeah, 8th grade's not college, but it's also not far off from that either.
Can you imagine getting beat by a computer in a poetry contest? And then your parents are like, "It's okay, honey." And HP beat you. It's
yes,
like,
I don't.
we get it.
I guess kind of going back to that, like I think a part of me is, yeah, I get it. Like I'm not like if I had to choose between reading a work written by a person versus a machine, I think right now I would lean still towards person, but at the same time, it's I feel like just like a blanket, like we can't accept this for our things. Like I don't. I feel like that approach with technology almost never works. Like I feel like the sooner you can kind of start coming to terms with it and start preparing for it.
Well, I mean, so I think I think you're right in almost every field up into the creative field. And I think especially when it comes to things like poetry, because I, like when it comes to poetry, maybe to a degree when we're talking about fiction, as well. I think you can maybe get away with it with nonfiction, perhaps.
That's the most interesting because like nonfiction is probably the one that stays the most true to real life.
Yeah, but it's like I don't have any investment in your. I mean, to a degree, maybe, but like the premise doesn't have a lot of investment in your imagination creating the world that is existing in the literature. So, if I'm reading like, okay, this magical universe where there's this chosen one, like I don't know what all you would have to put into these prompts. Like, is it gonna spit out something like Harry Potter? Maybe, but not as good, I'm sure.
I don't know.
Or maybe that's the challenge, that it's listening to me tell it.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
But
yeah. I would not be surprised if sometime within the next 5 years there is a book that comes out that was written by an AI that gets like worldwide recognition. Maybe not necessarily for like maybe there's still mistakes in the writing or something like that, but it's a full book that everyone knows that was written by an AI or predominantly written, maybe edited a bit by a person, but I would not be surprised that happens in the next 5 years. Would not be surprised.
Fair. Yeah. No, I mean, I guess I mean, yeah, I would say I would hope if even if it's inevitable, I would hope the poetry world at least tries to stop it for as long as we can.
But that sounds like such a like that approach sounds so.
Well, okay. Well, let me know. So, what benefit could it have to a poet individually?
I mean, I think it's just what benefit does reading a good poem have to you? You know, if it's something that you can take and has an impact, you draw something from it, and it causes you to reflect on your own life in a way that you find meaningful. Does that matter then if it was work that was written by a computer versus a person? Or like, for instance, what if it, I mean, would you prefer written by a person that you don't agree with at all, or has like completely opposite morals to you? Like, I don't, or would you prefer something written by Bashir? Like, there's all kinds of questions we could ask, you know? Like, I don't,
I
just
don't know.
assuming there's more merit to it just because a person wrote it. I get it, but
You wouldn't consider there to be more merit because a person wrote it?
I don't know. I would say I'd be open to investigating that assumption.
That's fair.
I don't know where I fall on it right now. You know, I think we're in uncharted territory right now. So I think it's kind of like one of those things that I don't fully know my stance on it until I see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the thing that I can see is, especially when we're starting to talk about journals, and when we start to talk about, you know, ways that the outside world would come in to invest in poetry. It's like a lot of it kind of spurns from, like, you know, these are the creative people. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that they don't, I don't want to say they don't have a creative bone in their body, but maybe there's a lot that don't, right? And so, like, they go and they resource the creatives. They resource the people that, you know, they're creating, like people that are far better and far more into the field than even like us. And they're like, okay, these are the people that, like, I don't know, that we would go to create whatever work that we would need, because we can't think of how to enter or broach this, like the phrases, and the way that they're putting words together are ways that I would never think to put words together. So it's like, okay, so you can have it that way, or you can have a robot create it. So that would immediately kind of supersede, you know, any usefulness or utility that I would have for it, because I'd be like, man, like that just means that there's a creative position somewhere that's like, it's more worth it to the company for sure to be like, well, you're just not gonna, you know, we're gonna use this algorithm, or we're gonna use this website.
I guess on one hand, I feel like we're almost kind of like putting like the creative like on like a pedestal of sorts to be like, but this is the creative and like things like that. Very kind of I don't know. When in reality, maybe it's not. Maybe we are making a bigger deal out of it. It's like, okay, like creative person, not creative person, whatever. And on the other hand, too, like in terms of like the computer program, I mean, it's a model. It's modeled after all the people that you've read, all the people I've read, and more, way more. You know, in fact, it's modeled after more people than we would be able to read in our lifetimes. You know, so and that's, you know, I think in a lot of ways, poets are the same thing. You know, you're modeling after work that you've read.
Yeah, but it's like
We're missing that lived experience. Is that the issue?
yeah, but it's also like, how would I put this? A lot. Let's just take. Um, let's take. We're both married, right? And not to each other, but we're both, there's separate people that are not here that we're each respectively married to, and so it's like, you find your partner, right? And your partner is an amalgamation of their lived experiences. And so the things, every situation, person, you know, and place that your partner has been a part of, all come together to be whoever they are right now. Or like let's say, like when you met them, like everything, and then you liked them when you met them, right? And so I think that part of it is like, they would not be that exact person if they had, I, I don't know, if they had 40 more, like let's, I'm put an arbitrary number, like if they had 40 more years of living and experience that they had when they met you, if you just added in 40 more years of lived experience into that person's body and mind, they wouldn't be the same exact person. And maybe you still like that person. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not saying maybe you don't like that person. Maybe you still like that person, but it's just to say that they're not the same person. And a lot of the uniqueness and the things that you like, I'm sure, come from the exactness of who you're dealing with right there. You know what I mean? And so I think that like it's kind of the same thing when it comes to like writing. It's like trying to make the case that, oh well, poets, they can only have however many poems and like experience in their head as they can for like that exact person. But man, this algorithm, like, or this AI, like, it's read all these collective works of all these artists, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, does that make the thing that it creates more special, or does that mean that you're an amalgamation of just more work? Because again, like, also like the emotional dynamic of what you're writing, or who you are when you're writing it. Because like, even if you have all those same exact words in your head and you have more that you can render, like, what do you choose if you're having like a rough day? What do you choose if somebody just passed? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of other really specifically intrinsic things to the human experience that I think make creative works, to me at the very least, kind of like more off limits than. And I'm not necessarily putting creatives on a pedestal as much as I'm like, I think the product, like, it's kind of meaning that, okay, the only thing that we're just doing is pumping out product. And so it's like, when you're writing a book, or if somebody else is writing a book, or you're writing a poem, you're just happening to be churning out this product that, if you had more years of experience, or if you lived in this country for a certain amount of time so you can get this kind of experience, that you would do a better job at this poem. And maybe that's true, but maybe not. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
But again, if you guys do take over, just know this was a joke.
Let us know your thoughts. Where do you fall on this spectrum? Do you feel that poems written by programs like these should be accepted, should be rejected, should be accepted with an asterisk? Is it something that you're afraid of? Are you going to take your job away as a poet? These are all things that we are very, very much interested in.
Yeah, like, think about it, like 10 years from now, would you rather buy a book that was written by like artificial intelligence, or would you rather buy a book written by a poet that you never met, that you don't know, that, whatever the case is, but like
That's
there's
interesting. Yeah, the idea of that, like, computer versus someone you have no idea who it is, just a random name.
But yeah, just because now it shares the market, like that's the thing, because it's like, it's not a necessarily expansive marketplace like poetry, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not to say that it's to say that like poetry is not like in particular like booming marketplace. It's not accelerating, at an exponential rate. You know what I mean?
But I mean, at the same time, that's sink or swim, just like everything else. If you're a good poet, you'll find a way to make it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that if you're a pizza shop and you're like, man, my pizzas are the best pizzas ever. Why? Because like I do this specific thing with my hands that puts a specific piece of pizza together. It's like you can create machinery to do stuff. So it's like the recreation of the things that happen with your hands, or like how whatever, like when people would build cars before the assembly line, and then you got these conveyor belts, and now you can just kind of be a guy in a room while the machines put the car together, right? And so I think that like these are all things that aren't necessarily like the creative process goes into kind of creating these tools and stuff like that would, or in the machinery that would put your like put these things together. But it's like the creativity is the exact thing that you're replicating here. And so it's like, would it be cool if the marketplace was not intertwined whatsoever? You know what I mean? Like I think I would not necessarily have. I don't even think I necessarily have an issue with it, as much as I'm just like I don't view it as equal necessarily. I would be like, I think the lived experiences and the things that are being produced by like human beings have a level of verification to me. You know what I mean? That the machine, the machine learning can't really access.
Yeah, I certainly understand that view. I feel like at the same time, you still see poets who, for instance, like the poet who writes about experience, that they have really no knowledge of whatsoever. That's.
But the thing is, like, there's like value in human lives, which is like it's a weird thing to say, but it's like I think I do mean that genuinely. Like, there is a value in watching somebody do a poem and you're like, you've never been through that. You know what I mean? Like, you have no like, I'm not saying like necessarily always a great experience to be, listening to those people do those poems, right? But it's just like, that's a person learning how to do poems. Like, there's people that are almost like machine algorithms themselves. They're like, man, like, I learned that in order to get a response in this poem, then you have to write poems about this or this or this. And so they just jam those things together, and regardless of what their experience, but that's kind of telling about their experience. Because like, maybe that's telling you, hey, this person doesn't have a whole ton of experience. And so here they are just trying to mimic what they see in order to get a response.
I think that the big thing now is just the lack of familiarity. It's new. It's something that, again, we hadn't expected to see as much in the creative field, especially not so soon. And the fact that we're already seeing, it's 2022. This stuff has just advanced so fast. I'd be curious to see where this discussion, if we had the same discussion 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what would be the stances? I don't know if they'd be the same or not. I don't know.
5-10 years from now, we're going to be debating this like with the robot
and right here. So don't remind us in 5-10 years.
It's going to be the third person on the podcast. It's going to be like, I think you're wrong. Destroy.
As always, let us know your thoughts on these topics, because this is going to be one that's going to remain relevant for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
To wrap us up, though, it's time to go from the artificial to the natural. Wait, what's that over there? We're doing Poetry in the Wild, guys. Poetry in the Wild. I have a thingamabob that I need to share.
Wow.
This is from Twitter, which is still alive.
It's still alive. It's
thriving.
Pretty good.
It's thriving. It's thriving. It's doing the thing. It's doing the thing. I do not really do much on Twitter, but that's me. You guys do you. So Matthias, you have sent us our Poetry in the Wild. What are we looking at right here?
Okay, so this is actually one of my tweets. Okay, I wanted to go back into the far distant past, that is, of April 4th of this year. I know it seems like forever ago.
A computer did not write this, to be clear. Okay.
Tell that to my wife. Shout out to my wife. Okay, but I wrote this, and I actually wrote this. I'm not going to give any backstory before it, so I'll just read it, and then I'll give the backstory. Okay, so y'all don't think the moon fake sometimes? Like, most of the times it's real, but I see it right now and be like, maybe not.
Oh, man. Oh, you can put the clap on if you want to reach over there. If you can't reach it, that's okay.
Where are we at? Golf clap.
Yes, very, very nice. Very nice. Nice.
So, here's a little bit of backstory. So, April 4th, it was a clear night. I was walking around, and typically, so I get like 10,000 steps a day, right? And one of the things that I do in order to attain that is I walk around our neighborhood in our complex in order to kind of get my steps at the end of the day. And as I was walking, I'm looking, I look up, and it's a full moon, and I'm like, why does the moon look like this? It was freaking huge. I don't know if you've seen the Truman Show, yes?
I thought you were going to say you've seen the moon. And I was like, yes, Truman Show, unfortunately.
You haven't seen the Truman Show?
There's a boo button there, too, if you want to press it. It's the light blue.
What the heck? Oh, my. You have not seen the Truman Show?
I've not seen the Truman Show.
Jeff, you have to get on that.
I do.
Oh, no, that has okay, listen. You're hearing us right now. What is the date? It's the 12th. It's the December 12th.
December 13th.
It's the 13th. Okay, it's December 13th right now as we speak. Jeff has to have watched The Truman Show by the next time we sit.
Gosh.
There's no excuses. There's absolutely.
Well, this concludes the Versus Live forever. It's been a great run, guys. But
okay, but I don't want to give too much away because I absolutely need you to see.
Spoilers are fine.
But essentially, the moon plays a big part in this film, and again, I'm like looking at the freaking moon, and I'm like, this thing is freaking huge, and I start having my suspicions, and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, like the moon is probably real, but maybe.
This is your like Kanye moment, huh?
We don't know. I'm not trying to say who made the moon, but you guys know who I'm talking about. But yeah, no, I don't know. That's just what I was thinking, kind of an off-shoulder thought. But what do you think? What do you think?
Do I think about the moon?
What do you think about the moon, Jeff?
I think the moon's real. I'm a firm believer in the moon.
He's paid off by Big Moon.
What are flat earthers' views on the moon? Like, do they believe in the moon? I imagine. Though I can't even. But do they think it circles the flat Earth? Like, I don't.
I honestly don't know what they. I don't know. What they think
if you're a flat earther, we won't judge. We just want to know how you feel about the moon. It's an honest question.
This is like, I feel like all the content that flat earthers like get that like they would like watch is like, you have to have like made it in mind of like flat earthers. Like, you're not just like making like a cooking show and you'd be like, hey, for all the flat earthers out there, how would you make this bisque?
But she's like, okay, well, if you believe the Earth's flat, then what else? There has to be more to this too, right? Like, it can't be like everything else. Like, I
mean, I'm sure there's other theories that kind of span off of if the Earth is flat. It just, okay, so light distribution, I think, is probably my biggest thing when it comes to like, because it's like I don't see how they would defend against like how light is distributed across surfaces if the Earth was flat.
I mean, they can make arguments for everything. They argue against the flight patterns. They argue against the all kinds of stuff. Like, I don't.
But all I'm saying is that you could make a fake moon and you could put it up there.
The real question is, though, if the moon is real, do you think people have visited it?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I have my suspicions on whether or not the moon is real. Well, actually, I have my suspicions on whether I think that the moon is an object that's in the sky for sure.
Most definitely.
I absolutely believe that there is, but like, I don't think it's rock, or I don't think it's entirely rock.
Oh, you're that cheese person, huh? It's cheese.
I don't think it's cheese. Like, I think it's machinery. I think there's like people that live inside of the moon that are like, you know, I don't know what they're doing up there, but there's a bigger agenda to be had. So,
fair.
I don't know.
That's also
just a thought, guys. Just a thought.
That's like vampires. Like, you know, like vampires can't go out in the light, but the moon just reflects the light. So how's that?
It reflects the sunlight. So like, what are they doing? But it's also I guess that makes sense because it's like, it's not like a mirror. It's not directly. It's like absorbing sun rays.
I mean, it kind of is like a mirror.
No, but it's glowing. It's not bouncing rays off of it. I don't know, man.
I don't think that's
because
we have any astronomers. There's Miana.
Or anybody that graduated 8th grade science.
Does anyone understand just light?
Astronomers are like, have you made it out of middle school? It can help us.
I can write a poem, but I can't tell you about the moon.
Oh man.
Well, guys, you've done it again on a Tuesday.
We tried to believe in ourselves.
Yeah. We're at the Versus Live. We're here. If you actually want to join us and kind of watch live, you are more than welcome to do so. We're at Third Way Cafe. Show starts usually between 9 and 9:30. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'd love to know again your thoughts on the moon. If you're a flat earther, we have some questions for you again with regards to the moon, not your beliefs. That's fine.
Check us out. Okay, listen, we're the Versus Poetry, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and
Pick your poison, people.
I think that's well, pick your poison for
Pick
sure.
your poison. Cool. Yeah. But thanks so much, guys, for hanging out with us. We will see you next time on Versus Live. You guys take care.